everyone, welcome to the Nomad Talks. My name is Emily and I'm the co-founder of Nomad Junkies. Are you dreaming of living the French life in Paris? If so, well, you are at the right place because today we're going to talk about living and working in France with a working holiday visa. Let's welcome our guest, Claudia Amandola.
Hello.
Hi, Claudia. How are you?
I'm so great. Thank you so much for having me, Emily. I'm so happy to be here.
So where are you right now?
So I am in a suburb that's about 5 minutes from Paris called Bois-Colombes. But you just literally take a train and I am in the center of Paris.
Awesome. So for those watching who got no clue about what we're talking about, like what is the working holiday visa. So I will put a link below about for the website of International Experience Canada when you can get all the details. In short, the working holiday visa allows Canadians between the age of 18 to 35 to go live, work, and travel abroad for 1, sometimes 2 years, and in destination, like there's 30 destinations in the world. I did myself a working holiday visa for 1 year in New Zealand. It was like a life-changing experience. We all know someone with a working holiday visa in Australia and New Zealand, a really classic destination. But we have much more a destination as Canadian, like France. So, Claudia, what drove you to apply for a working holiday visa in France? And we want to know the real story.
Okay, so in 2010, I was doing a stopover in Paris, and it was my first time in Paris. I didn't even want to do the stopover. It wasn't a desire of mine at all, but it just was convenient for our vacation plan, so I decided to do it. The minute I stepped into the city, it was the first time in my life, and I had traveled a lot before that, where I felt like I was home. Like just something in me clicked, and I was like, I need to live here. This is heaven. This is beauty beyond immeasurable comprehension, and I need to live here. So for 8 years of my life, I completely obsessed over France, and I researched living and working here, and I read all the books of expats who had also done the same. And I made it basically my whole life. And one day I just woke up and I told myself, I can't live in Canada anymore. I need to make France a reality. And I sent in my resignation from my job. And I emailed my real estate agent and said I was putting my house up for sale because I'm moving to France. And that was it. That was it. And I was lucky enough to discover the magic of the working holiday visa, which allowed me to do that so much easier than I anticipated.
So can you tell us step by step how you prepare for your experience abroad and what was the process to apply for the visa?
So as soon as I put in Canadian wanting to work, young Canadian wanting to work in France, the working holiday visa came up right away. And I had not heard of it before. And it was like a miracle to discover it. And it was super, super simple to fill out as well. It was a very easy application, I found, compared to the other bureaucratic craziness here in France. I noticed that I needed to find housing. That was one of the secure things that they wanted. So because of the fact that I was reading so much in these expat books about scams on websites like the Kijiji of France, I wanted to play it by the safe route. And I ended up going with an agency for my first rental because they could be short-term rentals as well, which was really convenient for being here and being able to find a rental in a more comfortable space where I could actually visit it. So I found a rental through an agency called Paris Attitude, and they made the process super easy with me. I even said it's likely going to be short term. They said, no problem, you can alter the lease. That's not an issue. It was a little bit more expensive, but it ended up being the safest option for me. And it guaranteed me accommodation as soon as I arrived here, which was super important and was necessary for the application process as well. So that was like the biggest issue that I had with going through the whole work holiday visa process, just because, you know, finding a place, it's going to be a home. So it takes a little bit longer, and the landlords need to look through your documents to make sure that you are reliable as well. And then once I had that, I noticed that I had to find insurance for the year. So I looked for the cheapest options for a young person. Ended up finding out that for me, at least, it was ING. And after that, it was just paperwork that you fill in and a letter of intent, which was super easy for me to write because it's something I had been dreaming about for so long. So being able to put it out on paper as a way to convince people to approve my visa was not an issue. But I honestly, like I've heard and spoken to so many Canadian expats who have done this process, who have said the statement of intent did not even have a big impact on their application at all. So yeah, it was super easy. Booked my appointment online, went in person, gave all my documents. One document was messed up, which was my bank account information. They wanted to see more funds to bring myself over here and allow myself to live here just in case I didn't have a job. And they let me run to the bank down the street, get it, come back, which was super kind for the French embassy to do. And 2 weeks later, I had a visa in my hand.
And how did you feel when you get the visa? And what did you do? The first thing you did when you got there finally, right?
I like just hearing you say it still gives me the same excitement that I felt then. It was like everything I had ever dreamed about, everything that I longed was happening. It was reality. It was in my hands. It was there. I'm doing it. I'm moving to France. And I called up my closest friends who were also my colleagues who were leaving or who knew I was leaving the work. And we celebrated with like champagne and hanging out together. It was really wonderful. That visa sticker was fantastic.
So we already talked about the accommodation. So when you got there, you had a place to stay, but there's like other things like, making friends there, especially when you know no one in the country. So how did you create your new entourage in Paris? And what would you recommend for someone doing the working holiday visa to, you can feel lonely in big cities, right? So
of course. Yeah. So the things that I found most helpful is I found so many expat and women expat groups for Paris on Facebook. I joined all of them and I just lurked for a bit before I actually started interacting with people, and people started messaging me when they saw my post and they were like, oh, you're just moving at the same time as me. Let's meet up. Let's grab a coffee. So those were always super welcoming communities. And I ended up making a lot of friendships and connections through those groups. They were pretty life-changing when it came to meeting friends. And other than that, I have heard other expat girlfriends have used Bumble, but friends to friend Bumble as a way to connect with other women, like girl looking for female friend. And they've connected with people that they still, even after they've moved out of Paris, are amazing friends with today. So those are my two biggest recommendations, especially the Facebook groups. They've been life-changing for any issue I've ever had. As a person kind of lost in a new culture, you post it there, everybody has an answer for you. It's the most supportive community.
And actually, what are the main differences between living in France and living in Canada? And how did you have to adapt, to adjust?
So one of the things I've learned is, and one of the things I miss the most about Canada, it's probably the only thing I miss about Canada, is customer service doesn't really exist here. The customer is not right ever. And you just have to deal with that and be patient, because eventually the companies do come around when they realize that you're persistent. So persistence is also something that I learned here, and I learned to have a backbone with that persistence. In addition to that, there's a lot of paperwork when you've decided to settle down here long term. And the bureaucratic process in France is the slowest thing you could possibly imagine. If you are imagining slow, negated by 100, it is insanely slow. And there's points where you're I'm going to lose my mind. My visa's expiring and I have not received my prefecture meeting to extend it. What is happening? But then you get there and you realize nobody actually cares that your visa expired. People are just working on their own time and taking their lunch breaks for as long as they want, and they'll get to you when they get to you. So yeah, you just have to learn patience. Patience is the biggest thing I learned here. That's the biggest thing.
What step did you take to find a job? Was it easy? You know, the working holiday allowed to work legally in France, which is great. So you can, you know, like have an income when you're living there. What's your experience with that?
So when I finally decided I'm moving to France and there's nothing anybody can do about it, even though I didn't have a job lined up, I searched online for English teaching jobs in Paris. And the first thing that came up was a company called Babylongs. And it still seems to this day that they'll hire any really English person who has a little bit of experience with children. Doesn't matter what it is. I came from an educator background, but I've known people to come from business backgrounds, but who have babysat and were hired by Babylongs. And that was an easy starting point for just making a bit of money while I was living here to help pay for the rent and pay for my food, etc. So that's what I started with. I was able to get that job while I was still in Canada. So I had that lined up for when I arrived. And then after I arrived, I started applying to like more private schools because I knew they paid more. And with my educator background, it was useful. But I also found that there are so many companies through LinkedIn who, if you put Paris and then English, you'll have so many jobs that pop up. And so many of them are remote too, which is super convenient for when you arrive to this country and you want to explore this country. So I feel like if you start building up your LinkedIn profile and really make it thorough and thick, you'll end up finding an opportunity without an issue. And so many of them say, like, we want people with valid papers, but a work holiday visa is a valid paper. So so they're eager to hire you, especially if you are native English.
Yeah, I heard that it's a good trick to, when you do a working holiday visa, to change your location on your LinkedIn. And even sometimes, like, some recruiters, depending on your background, can find you. So I think it's a little trick that I wish I knew when I was in New Zealand. I didn't know at the time, but
yeah,
it makes so much sense that also allow people to find you, right?
Yeah, I have gotten messages. So yes, that does work.
That's great. And so if you don't speak French or you're still learning French, is it possible to get a job in France?
Absolutely. And anybody who says it's going to be hard are just being negative, in my opinion. There are so many English speaking jobs available that, okay, yes, I do tell people this. If you are willing to go under your pay grade and you are willing to do work that maybe is below the qualifications you've dedicated your life to, like I have a master's degree and I was babysitting, not something like that I would have imagined doing with a master's, but in order to settle into this country, it was the best opportunity for me at the moment. And once you've built those networking connections as well, it opens up doors to other opportunities for you, like people who know people. That seems to be a really big thing here. And in addition to that, the more immersed you are in the country, the more you pick up the language and the more comfortable you feel to have to work onto like other jobs that require maybe just a little bit of French or are written in French, but are looking for English speakers.
And let's talk about the cost of living. So would you say that the money earned during the working holiday visa was enough or is still enough to cover your living? And is it like, if you compare to Canada, like, is it like what's more expensive, what's cheaper, so we can have an idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So it depends where in Paris you live, of course. Like the suburbs where I live are significantly cheaper for the size of my apartment than when I was living actually in the center of Paris, in the Marais, which is the troisième arrondissement, which is super expensive. If I were still working at the babysitter job, but living here, yeah, it wouldn't have been an issue. Now I have additional jobs that I'm working at. I'm working as an auto entrepreneur, which is like a freelancer job. And I find that covers my living expenses, no problem at all. Is it significantly more expensive to live in Paris? Yes. Is it more significantly expensive to live in all of France? No, because I lived in Strasbourg, and Strasbourg is a huge expat city in the northeast side of France, close to the German border. And the life and cost, like the working and salary and cost of living balance is so much more balanced than it is here. I made less money there, but I felt more rich there because of the cost of rental was so much lower. The cost of food was so much lower. So it really just depends where you situate yourself. If you're going to go to like Marseille and Nice and Cannes and live in those beautiful beachy places, you can expect to have to pay a lot to live there. But if you're willing to settle in like the smaller towns or the smaller cities, it works out.
And where did you travel in France during your working holiday visa? What were your favorite places?
So I traveled quite a bit around France during my work holiday visa. I went to like all places around Normandy. I went to, well, Alsace area, which is my favorite. And I went to Rocamadour, which most French people don't even know about. And that was just like a stroke of luck and destiny that I felt drawn there. And it was the most incredible experience ever. I also traveled a bit outside of France. I went to Japan while I was on my work holiday visa, which was really cool. There's a lot of student vacations here. So with school vacations, I was able to take a few vacations for myself as well. I went to Amiens, which is another little town about an hour and a half from Paris. There's so much to see in this country that it's hard to know when to stop. Like any weekend, you can hop on a train and just be there.
I was about to ask, like, do you have some tips to travel on a budget in France?
Yeah, last minute train tickets are the best opportunity, which is what I usually did. I used to check about 2 days before the departure date, and they were always made significantly cheaper. Same with hotel rooms, obviously, because they want to fill up those spots. Those are the cheapest option, like the cheapest ways to go, in my opinion.
So how long in total were you in France with the working holiday visa?
So I had it for 1 year, and then I renewed it for the second year. So 2 years total. And 2 months into following my destiny over here, I actually ended up being set up on a blind date with a good friend of my client, the babysitting client. And we fell in love instantly. And we got married.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So now I actually have a permanent residency card because I was able to apply through it or for it through my marriage to a Frenchman because he's Parisian. I know. Yeah. Honestly, I feel like I always used to say my heart was in Paris, but I feel like destiny pulled me there because he was there. So it just worked out amazing. If I hadn't have jumped into doing that and doing the work holiday visa and quitting my stable job and selling my house and getting over here, I would have never met him. And that is the best part of this journey overall.
And you know what they say, Paris is like the most romantic city in the world. So who doesn't fall in love in Paris, right?
I know. It's so true. I didn't believe it. I wanted to ignore the Frenchman.
You're the proof.
But then
living proof that is true.
Absolutely.
Well, that's really inspiring and romantic. So finally, what advice would you give to someone who would like to do a working holiday visa in France, but is still like hesitant?
I always say that if you have that little spark in you, there's a reason for it. And doing it was the best decision I ever made in my entire life. Even before I met my husband, I discovered so much about myself by immersing myself in a culture that I was unfamiliar with. By doing this all on my own, I discovered a strength that I didn't know I had in me, and just a discovery and appreciation for other people and the world through it. If you have a dream to do it, don't let your fears snuff it out at all. It will take risks. It'll probably be a bit of a financial loss, but it will be the most rewarding thing that you could ever do for yourself, ever. We are blessed to have this opportunity available to us through the working holiday visa. It's so easy to step into another country and build a life there, basically, and to not jump on it because you're afraid of, I don't know, like a little bit of monetary loss, or it will be difficult to fit into the language or learn the language. Don't, just jump. It's the greatest thing you'll ever do for yourself.
Well, thank you so much, Claudia. Your story is really inspiring, and I feel that you're gonna give the empowerment for those watching live with us to maybe
Thank
make
you.
the move and also apply to build a life in France, like to
Do
try
it.
it at least with the
Mhm.
working holiday visa. For those watching who has the question, we're live, so please put your question right below here in the comments, and we'll take two questions from the public. And for the one that we don't have time to answer to everyone, Claudia and I will still be like available after the live to answer all your comments. And also, if you have like technical or more specific question, we also have someone from International Experience Canada that can get you like the right information. So everything you want to know, whatever the cost, like how long does it get, is it possible, the condition, anything or more personal, like life in Paris, we're there for you. Let's take the first question. That's, I feel, a really Canadian question. What is the weather? What is the weather like in Paris all year round?
Okay, so people said, "Oh, it's not going to be a cold winter when you're in Paris. It's not cold. Like, you're Canadian, you don't know. Like, our winters are warm. Listen, our winters are pretty cold here. Like, that's a lie. It's a different kind of cold, I find. And other than that, like, the weather is pretty consistent with regards to temperature wise. Other like the rest of the year long, it's about 15 degrees consistently, and then it gets really hot sometimes and maybe a little bit chillier. Very rarely snows. Very, very rarely. We had snow once last year, and that was like a miracle, and it was the greatest celebration for my dog.
Another question. What do you miss the most about Canada?
Oh, that's difficult. Well, actually, my parents were just here about a month ago, and they said, "What do you want us to bring you from Canada? What are you missing? And like, do you need clothes? Blah, blah, blah." And I said, no. I would like you to bring me a container of instant Tim Hortons coffee and a bag of ketchup chips, and also a giant shaker, because they now sell giant shakers of KD, Kraft Dinner cheese.
Kraft Dinner, yes.
So they sent me a giant container of Kraft Dinner cheese. They got me 2 containers of like Tim Hortons instant coffee, Tim Hortons cereal, and ketchup chips. Oh, and Cheez-It crackers. Those are like, it's dumb because I'm like, I'm never going to miss this junk food and this junk coffee when I moved to France. And now I'm like, I see it, my friends drinking their Tim Hortons coffee or eating their ketchup chips. I'm like, oh man, I really miss that. I'm already done the 500-gram container of KD cheese, and I miss it already.
We'll try to send you another Kraft Dinner by the
Thanks. Fingers crossed.
Well, guys, if you have a other question that we did not answer, please put them in the comments below. We're gonna answer all of them. And also, if I will put again the link for the to the International Experience Canada website directly on the page for the France Working Holiday Visa, so you will get all the information to make your Paris, France dream come true, like Claudia did. And and finally, one last thing, I would like to invite all of you, and also you, Claudia. We have other live events that talk about destination. You can do a working holiday visa that are not well known as France, but we also have this season, like we did a working holiday visa in Norway, in Czech Republic, in South Korea. So I will put the date below, and I hope to see you there, because maybe it will inspire you to go to another country as well. Never know.
I'm always adventuring. Now this has given me like the expat bug, and I tell my husband, if we have to move for work, no problem, I'll move in an instant. Like there's something adventurous and exciting about being able to put your feet and build a life and put roots in a bunch of different countries.
Totally, totally. Well, Claudia, thank you so much. It was really nice meeting you, and I wish you all the best luck and appreciation of your new life in Paris.
Thank you so much, Emily. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.